All right, welcome back to the draft coverage here in 2008. We're going to show you the recaps of the teams, and you can definitely share your thoughts on Discord, share your thoughts in the comments. But we're going to start off with each division. Everyone's going to be up on there on the screen, so you can look at who you want. So the Chicago Bears, right, they were really focusing on some defensive picks there with Keith Rivers, Charles Godfrey, Orlando Scandrick. They get John Carlson to help with their tight end, Roy Schooning, a good, decent guard there in the mid-rounds, Matthew Mulligan, John David Booty. They'll be lucky to make the team probably. Packers just going with BPA, getting Brandon Albert, Quentin Groves, Dan Connor, helping their O-line, their linebackers, even David Hawthorne, Xavier Adibi. Very much really strengthening that defensive linebacking core. Eric Ainge was drafted. I can't see him challenging Cutler. Matt Castle has a better chance of challenging Cutler, and that's not going to happen. Lions getting Donnie Avery, Brandon Carr, Jameel McClain. Danny Woodhead's probably one of the better picks that they had. I mean, Reggie Bush is a pass-catching running back. So is Danny Woodhead. So maybe there might be some opportunity to put Reggie Bush out as a wide receiver and have Danny Woodhead in the backfield or vice versa. So I'm looking forward to some of the opportunities of playing with this Lions team. Then the 2008 draft for the Vikings, we see Eddie Royal also. So another team taking a wide receiver first round. They also go with Kevin Smith to help out Ronnie Brown at running back, needing kind of a decent backup. They had Najah Davenport, but Davenport went, I think, to Oakland in the offseason. We had Derek Harvey. There's Davon Best, Demario Presley, O'Neal Cousins. Feel free to let me know what your rankings are, your reviews of these NFC North picks. But now we'll go ahead and move on to another division to better analyze. So we have the AFC North now. So Steelers having several picks here, an extra pick there in the 6th round. So Aqib Talib helping their defensive backfield. They also draft Ryan Mundy, decent safety, probably a backup this year, but maybe a future starter. Trevor Scott, and even Tom Zbyszkowski. Zbyszkowski's just a very good 7th-round pick. I mean, he's not that great of a player, but he's going to be better than some of the other trash that could have been picked in the 7th round. As for offense, Chila Rochelle might even start this year. Malcolm Kelly, kind of be down on that depth chart. They've got Ward, they've got Nate Washington. They signed Jericho Cotchery, I believe. So they have some option there at wide receiver, but Malcolm Kelly might get some opportunity, and when he does, I hope he shines. Chauncey Washington at running back, just another addition there, and J.J. Jensen probably won't even make the team, probably practice squad. Ravens, again, getting Mayo. They do get Ray Rice like they did in real life. 2 DTs ending their draft, which is just adding more depth. Nick Hayden probably being one of the better ones. Josh Johnson to maybe back up Jamarcus Russell, a very similar play style. You have John Sullivan, who's probably going to be a backup this year. But John Sullivan, as many of us know, is going to likely be not only a starter, but maybe even a Pro Bowl starter for them. Dwight Lowry, just more depth for their cornerbacks. Now, Cleveland had some picks. They have, Golston, probably a miss. Jordan Dizon, probably a miss. They do draft Slayton, who's going to help out with the running back core. They do have Garrett Wolf, and they have TJ Duckett, but Slayton's going to be a decent pick there in the 3rd round. Gary Barnidge helping their tight ends. I mean, they have Teo Johnson, who was pretty good. They had Darnell Dinkins. I think there's some other crappy tight end, but Barnidge is going to help them there. Colt Brennan. So Colt Brennan might, depending on how bad the Browns are, could play this year. McCown, Hasselbeck, neither one are proven. But Brennan is 5th-round pick, maybe a development project there. We'll see if he gets a chance. Then they go with 2 cornerbacks, 2 DTs, Dan Carpenter. They get another cornerback and Jack Williams, Paul Hubbard. A lot of these people are going to be practice squad because they're not going to be able to start or keep this many draft picks. So I probably should have spread them out, traded some more away, but they were loaded with picks and they ended up getting a lot of young talent. Bengals getting their free safety, Kenny Phillips, wide receiver Devin Thomas, Tavares Gooden, Jacob Hester. Do go with a quarterback. Don't expect much from Andre Woodson, Nate Garner, Kellen Davis. Kind of a mediocre draft. Kenny Phillips is a really good one. Even Tavares Gooden is a pretty decent pick there. Not too many standout selections here for the Bengals. But I'll let you review that team and let me know your thoughts. Then we have the AFC East. We see Buffalo getting Jake Long as their major success there. Going to be a long-term tackle for them. Then we have Red Bryant, probably one of the next better picks in this draft. They did get 2 receivers, Dexter Jackson and Darius Renard. And then Tracy Porter, Justin Forsett, Craig Stelz. The Miami Dolphins get their tight end and Justin Keller, and they get another good receiving option with Jordy Nelson going to Miami. So a good replacement there. They lost Bryant to Johnson in free agency last year. He went to the Green Bay Packers. So this year they draft Jordy Nelson, giving them more boost over there with the receiving core. They also draft Will Franklin in the 7th round, but we'll see if he makes the team. They get their left tackle in Chad Reinhardt, Carl Nix, and Doug Legursky as their offensive line, and then Tyler Schmidt. New York Jets, they get their cornerback, Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie. They also draft 3 more cornerbacks, so they really fill up their DB core, doing a lot of BPA. We see Chevis Jackson, Justin Tryon, and Jack. I'm not going to even attempt that name. They did also go with Jason Jones, Jacob Tamme, and Tamme might be a decent tight end to be a backup for Mercedes Lewis, and then Tony Hills. Patriots, again, they got rid of their first-round pick last year for Randy Moss, but their first pick was Jamal Charles, who's going to be probably the best back they've had since Curtis Martin, but Curtis Martin was at the tail end of his career, where he ended up going to Atlanta last year. He's now with the San Diego Chargers this year. Patriots now get that young, fresh-legged running back who's going to be really good for them. Then also they have Marcel Reese, so they got their halfback and their fullback. They got Josh Morgan at wide receiver. And then on the defensive end, you see Bruce Davis, Mike McGlynn on O-line, and Trey Moore. Moving on to the NFC East, or excuse me, the NFC East, we have the Dallas Cowboys, right? They're getting Dwayne Brown, Mario Manningham in the 3rd round. Again, they traded away their 2nd-round pick for Nick Barnett, so that's kind of their 2nd-round pick there, who's a great veteran for them. Thomas Brown at running back, Geoff Schwartz, right tackle, and then Jonathan Goff, finishing out their 7th-round pick. Giants getting Glenn Dorsey, probably the best DT in this draft. They also get wide receiver Jerome Simpson, and I think he'll be a good spark for them this season. Looking forward to passing the ball to him. Croy Bierman, pass rusher, Antoine Molden, and then Wesley Woodyard. Basically, DB, linebacker, D-line. You get one of each. Then we have the Eagles with Calais Campbell, Deshaun Jackson, so a real-life pick there. Tim Hightower to go be paired up with Darren Sproles. Actually, he, I think, is 1 point better in overall, so he might even be the technical starter for the Eagles, with Darren Sproles being more of the 3rd down back, the passing back. Derek Fine, Mike Tolbert, Brian Dalla Parente, and Bruno Giassomini. Then Washington gets Chris Williams, one of the better tackles in this draft, an anchor for their right side. They also get 3 receivers, Earl Bennett, Kenny Moore, Armand Shields. Definitely more depth there for their receiving core. They get Corey Steiger. We'll just leave it at that. William Hayes, a pass rusher, and then Brett Kern at punter. They're going to see if they're able to make the playoffs again this following year. It was quite the shock they made it the playoffs this year. Then we have the AFC West. We look at the Broncos with Philip Merling being their first pick at right end. Then they go on the offensive end to help block with John Greco, who kind of play anywhere on that offensive line. They got the running back Shashard Choice, Marcus Smith, the receiver. I'm not too optimistic about Marcus Smith there. BU or Bo Bell at middle linebacker, and Frank Oakham. Chiefs get their starting center, Mike Pollock. Then they also pull the same strategy the Panthers did. They draft 2 safeties, Tyrell Johnson, Tyvon Branch. So they will be, and they even have Jamar Adams too. So they had a lot of safety help there, defensive back help. 2 linebackers there were Jolon Dunbar and Sean Crable. They get Caleb Haney, not expecting much of him, more of just a backup probably. Brad Cotton, the tight end. The San Diego Chargers, again, Antoine Cason, as you saw before. They also bring in Sam Baker, so offensive line help. And then they just went BPA. They went with linebackers. I mean, you can never really have enough linebacker help. And so you got Robert James, Larry Grant, and Alvin Bowen. They also get Jed Collins. Again, this was a loaded fullback class that were mostly undrafted in real life, but here in this scenario, they are worth picking in the 4th, 5th, and 6th rounds. And to the Raiders, they get Matt Ryan. They get their wide receiver, James Hardy. Then the rest of it was mostly defense and the Barry Richardson there at the offensive line there. So Philip Wheeler is likely going to be a starter for them, and we'll see how long he starts for them. Now we move to the NFC West. We see the Cardinals getting Lawrence Jackson, probably more of a mispick there, but we'll see if he turns into something. Chad Henne, so when Kurt Warner, who's in his late 30s, retires, Henne might be able to take on that next role. And if not, they'll probably go somewhere else. We got Jalen Parmelli, Corey Lynch, and King Dunlap finishing off the Cardinals draft. Then we have the St. Louis Rams getting Curtis Lofton. Big help there, big boost in their linebacking core when they lost Nick Barnett. Then with their second round pick, they got Martellus Bennett. Solid tight end choice for Tony Romo now to throw to. With the pick they acquired from the Nick Barnett trade, they get right tackle Jeff Otah. So good help there. I mean, really swapping Nick Barnett for Jeff Otah, I think, is a good swap, especially when Nick Barnett wanted out. Then you have Terrell Thomas, Quentin Demps, some defensive back help, Ben Jarvis Green Ellis, who's going to be probably a solid running back, or at least, role player running back for the Rams. Then you have John Weeks, and then Keenan Burton. San Francisco also had a decent draft here. We look at Kentwan Balmer at DT. They had Haloti Ngata. Now they have Kentwan Balmer to help kind of solidify that. I believe they're a 4-3 defense, which is why I went with that extra DT. Cody Wallace, so we got the interior D-line, interior O-line. Donald Thomas, also part of that interior O-line. DeJuan Morgan, Chaz Schillens, who Schillens is maybe not the best overall receiver, but he is fast. So I'm looking at him as a kick returner as well as maybe a speedy option for Drew Brees. So they're the Super Bowl champions, get some speed on that offense. Joe Mays, middle linebacker, and Kenny Iwabima, so linebacker, DB, just going BPA there. Seattle getting a solid left tackle. They also get Anthony Collins to kind of help out on that O-line. I think he might end up shifting maybe to guard, depending on the depth on this O-line. Rashard Mendenhall comes in for Seattle. So we have the aging Sean Alexander. They also signed Travis Minor, and now they add Rashard Mendenhall. Even adding Peyton Hillis, who right now he's a fullback, but he could take some snaps there, similar to St. Louis Rams' Brian Leonard. Leonard had some decent runs this season as a fullback, and I substituted him at running back several times. I see Peyton Hillis also taking on a running back role at times. They bring in Danny Amendola, and then their defensive line with Andre Fluellen in the 3rd round and Wallace Gilberry there in the 7th round. Now we're going to be looking into the NFC South. So what we have here, we look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers getting Darren McFadden, Trevor Laws. They get their quarterback Alex Brink, who not too optimistic there. They have Trent Edwards. They have Jim Sorgi. But Brink is going to be that rookie that is probably going to be an option, but I doubt he's going to last very long. They get the receiver Andre Caldwell, linebacker Geno Hayes. Geno Hayes is a pretty good mid-round pick. And then they have some more picks there, 2 in each round, finishing it up. And they basically went 3 O-linemen, Sean Murphy, Mackenzie Bernardeau, and Demetris Bell, and then DT Landon Cohen. Then looking at the Carolina Panthers, they get their quarterback of the future when Gannon eventually retires. Flacco might have a lot of success in Carolina. Speaking of depth, they lost Abreu Franklin to free agency, an already loaded DT defensive line core. You have Pat Sims being added, you have Chris Ellis being added, and you have Marcus Harrison being added. So more depth on the D-line. They do bring in Lavelle Hawkins, Hussein Abdullah, and Stanford Kegler. Then the Atlanta Falcons bring in Leotis McKelvin in the 1st round. He'll be paired there with Antonio Cromartie. They also have Bobby Taylor, who's been a dynamic cornerback for the past several years for them. Matt Forte is an interesting addition here because they've needed a solid running back. They tried having Curtis Martin last year. Marion Barber has been on the team, and Marion Barber is like a 59 overall. He just has not developed, so they get Matt Forte to really step in. He'll likely be the starter. Dennis Dixon is an interesting choice here as well because Jason Campbell is the starter, but they missed the playoffs. So we'll see if Dennis Dixon may challenge Jason Campbell. Campbell has sat for 2 years before getting his chance to start, and he was good, but I don't know if he'll ever be great. Then we have Cliff Averill, the left end, a great mid-round selection for them. Then Thomas Thomas DeCoud, the free safety there, along with Tyler Columbus and Alex Hall. Saints getting that depth at running back, that future starter to replace Deuce McAllister. They get Josh Sitton, another excellent pick, one of the best O-linemen in this draft class. Cornerback Brandon Flowers. I mean, they were pretty solid these first few picks. They do get early Doucette, who's probably one of the weaker receivers, but they still get some more depth there. Ryan Terrain and Lex Hilliard, so 2 fullbacks. Now, Ryan Terrain I've always known as more of a power back, so he will probably get some snaps there for the power back position, maybe to relieve Deuce McAllister. Then Kerry Williams, a great 6th-round selection. I think he was undrafted in real life, but he's there getting the 6th-round pick. And then Jeremy Thompson, the right end. Now we'll look to the last division to touch up on, and that is the AFC South. The Indianapolis Colts getting a star running back. I thought Fred Davis was going to be higher overall, but he's not. But we'll see if Peyton Manning can make him into a higher overall tight end. Jeremy Zuta, a great right guard there, likely starter or potential starter. They get 2 linebackers and their pass rushers, so Brian Smith, Ollie Highsmith, and then Andy Studebaker. They also get the wide receiver Marcus Henry. We'll see if he's able to make the team. Then the Jaguars, they get Chris Long, so they get some more powerful members on that defense, and they're on paper pretty good in the defense. So hopefully that transitions to some wins this year. They do also get Brian Brom, so Brom does not have to wait and be stuffed behind Aaron Rodgers. He has a chance to start. He has to beat out Charlie Whitehurst for the starting position. He is a very low overall, but we'll see if he can do what Brody Croyle did in Detroit. If he's able to get his start and start winning games, he could be their starter, and he could take Jacksonville to the playoffs. They do get more help on wide receiver with Limas Swede and Harry Douglas. They lost Roy Williams. Last year they lost Teron Calico, so now they're getting some more solid receivers for their team. They also get 2 cornerbacks, Patrick Lee and Kyle Arrington, as well as the fullback Jerome Felton. The Houston Texans get Cedric Ellis and Goster Cheerless. They do get a tight end in Jermichael Finley, and I think he's one of the better tight ends in this draft class. Not the best, but not low level like Fred Davis. Then you look at Matt Flynn being a quarterback selection, and Flynn could very potentially take on David Carr for the starting job. David Carr has won the Super Bowl in his second year, and since then, they've been a decent team, but every so often they have a slump where they're picking 11 or they're picking the top 10. They're a lowly team, but other years they're close to getting into the playoffs. This year they tied the Colts. I believe it was 7-10 for the Houston Texans. They also get Xavier Omon, Carlton Powell, and Rob Jackson. And the last team we'll analyze is the Tennessee Titans, getting Jonathan Stewart to help out with Michael Bennett in the backfield for the offense. They do get Kevin O'Connell, and Kevin O'Connell has a chance to start because Chad Pennington has been bouncing around the league. Ryan Fitzpatrick did not do very well in his start, and Kevin O'Connell will be competing against them for that starting job. We have tight end Craig Stevens, Kendall Langford on the defensive line, Fernando Velasco at center, and then they do get 2 mid-round, but solid receivers. Matthew Slater is going to be a good one, potential return man, and as well as Pierre Garçon. So those are 2 really good receivers picked in the mid-tier of this draft. Well, there you have it, the 2008 NFL Draft conclusion. Looking forward to the 2008-2009 season.